All right, today we're going to dive into something pretty wild. We're going to connect two worlds that you'd think have absolutely nothing to do with each other: the massive modern crisis of national debt and the, well, radical economy of the very first Christians. It's a journey that's going to challenge pretty much everything you think you know about money. So, yeah, let's jump right in.
Okay, let's just start with a number. A number so huge, it's almost impossible to really picture. 37, almost $38 trillion. That's the projected US national debt. I mean, when you have a figure that mind-bogglingly huge, you have to ask, right? What in the world is actually holding all of that up?
Now, hold that number in your head for a second and look at this one. Just about $1 trillion. So, what's this? This is the total value of all the gold the US has in its reserves. You know, the actual physical metal that used to be the anchor for our entire currency. See the problem here? The gap is, well, it's already pretty obvious. And this chart right here just lays it all out, plain and simple. Look at that difference. Our national debt is over 30 times bigger than our gold reserves. So what does that tell you? It tells you that our economy isn't really running on something you can touch, like gold. It's running on something way more abstract. Basically, promises, credit, and a whole lot of faith.
So you might be wondering, how did we even get to this point? Well, it definitely wasn't an accident. This timeline here shows you the key moments. It was a step-by-step process. Back in 34, the Gold Reserve Act started to loosen the dollar's connection to gold. Then in 1971, President Nixon just cut the cord completely. He severed the link. We basically made a trade. We swapped the hard security of physical metal for the flexibility of promises. And, well, what do promises create? As we're seeing, they can create a whole lot of debt. All right, so we've got this massive problem. And naturally, we look to the usual suspects for answers, right? We pull out our standard economic toolkits. But here's where things get interesting. The source material we're looking at today argues that this whole debate, it might be missing the point completely. It actually frames our dominant economic systems not as potential solutions, but as idols. You know the drill. The big debate is always capitalism versus socialism. On one side, you've got capitalism, which is all about competition, private ownership, and the profit motive. But the big critique, right, is that it can easily lead to exploitation, a system where profit just matters more than justice. Then on the other side, you've got socialism. The claim is that it protects people through collective ownership and planning. But the critique there is that in the real world, it often just turns into a huge bureaucracy that centralizes power and can become pretty coercive. The source's point, both are just human-made ideologies, and both are kind of trapped by their own biggest flaws. And that really brings us to the core question here. If the two main paths we're always told to choose from are both fundamentally flawed, then what? Is there another way? A completely different way to think about all this? About our economy, about wealth, and really about how we relate to each other? Well, the source material we're digging into says yes. It proposes this really radical third way. And get this, it doesn't come from some modern economist or a think tank. It comes from the ancient world. It's called the kingdom economy, and it's a model that was actually practiced by the early Christian church. And this right here, this verse from the book of Acts, is pretty much the cornerstone of the whole idea. Just listen to it. It describes a community whose beliefs totally upended their economic lives. Think about that. This wasn't some government program or a top-down order. It was a voluntary, shared spirit, a spirit of just radical generosity. Okay, so what is this kingdom economy exactly? You know, let's be clear about what it's not. It's not state-run socialism, and it's not market-driven capitalism either. The source defines it as something completely different. It's a community. They call it a communion of souls, where people see themselves not as owners, but as stewards. And the whole thing operates under one simple rule: the law of love. So let's break down the core principles, because this is where you see how different it is. The whole mindset just flips. It goes from, this is mine, I own this, to, I'm taking care of this for the good of everyone. Instead of a fear of scarcity, you have generosity. And the key thing here is that it all hinges on a voluntary change of heart, not the government forcing you to do anything. At the end of the day, this is an economy built on relationships and a shared faith, not on cold, hard transactions. And if you're wondering why they would do this verse right here kind of reveals the engine driving the whole thing. The Apostle Paul is basically saying that within this new community, all those old divisions, class, wealth, status, they just get erased. And if you truly believe that everyone is part of one body, well, then having massive wealth gaps inside that body just becomes unthinkable. Your economic life becomes a direct reflection of your spiritual unity.
Okay, so that's the ancient model. It's fascinating, for sure. But you have to be asking, what does a community from 2,000 years ago have to say to our world? You know, our world of digital monopolies and these insane trillion-dollar debts? Well, the source argues this isn't just a history lesson. It's meant to be a prophetic challenge to the systems we live in right now. So how could you even begin to apply this today? It starts with a huge mental shift, a paradigm shift. First, you've got to completely reframe how you see wealth. Stop seeing property, tech, and knowledge as tools for power and control, and start seeing them as gifts meant for everyone to flourish. And second, and this one is absolutely critical, we have to seriously talk about forgiving debt. The source is pretty blunt here. Letting oppressive debt just pile up and compound is a direct attack on a person's dignity and their freedom. And this brings us to the final wake-up call from the source. The tone shifts here. This isn't just some academic theory for us to debate over coffee. It's presented as a real struggle, a war even, a battle for the very soul of our society. The argument is simple. We are living inside an empire of debt, a system that is designed to trap and control people. And the first step in this fight is to start undermining that empire. And how do you do that? Not with some big top-down revolution. The idea here is a bottom-up one. You do it by forging real networks of generosity. Small, local, but powerful communities built on mutual support. Because at the end of the day, the most powerful weapon you have is to just live it. To actually show people, right where you are, in your own community, with your own resources, that a different way is possible. To prove that an economy based on love and stewardship isn't some pie-in-the-sky dream. It can be a living, breathing reality. And so we're going to leave you with this final, really provocative thought from the source. It's a challenge, really. A challenge to reorient our entire way of thinking about money and life. A call to live as if gold is not our security, debt not our master, and property not our God. It's an invitation to imagine, and then to start building a completely different kind of world.